This is See Her Outside, Stories from Women Who Adventure. I'm your host, Angie Leake. Paula Murray didn't start backpacking until she was nearly 60 years old, and now she can't get enough. Paula signed up for an all-women's backpacking trip through AWE Expeditions and Dreamland Safari Tours. If you haven't heard of AWE Expeditions before, they're one of our operating partners for the Summit Scholarship Foundation, which, by the way, is still accepting applications for 2026 scholarships. Applications close on January 31st, 2026, so go to the show notes now to learn more about this year's trips. Anyway, Paula lives in the Wasatch Mountain Range in northern Utah and has been a professional machine quilter for 31 years. She and her husband, Tom, have 6 children and 12 grandchildren. We talked about the beauty of getting older, including in menopause, what it's like to raise adventurous children and maintain a partnership, and how she makes time outdoors a non-negotiable in her life. Here's my conversation with the fantastic Paula Murray. Paula, I know that your first backpacking trip was at, I believe, age 59. And I'm curious, what do you think took so long, for lack of better words? What led you to not backpack for decades before you finally got into it?
Well, I know as a kid, we camped a lot, but we never did backpacking. And I never really had anybody that I knew growing up that backpacked. So it kind of wasn't in my circle. And, I always heard about people backpacking, but it just never was in my scope, to do that. And then I raised 6 children, so that kind of limited it there for a little while. But, taught all my kids how to be outdoors and camp and tent camp, basically. But I don't know, when I got older, I just one day decided that was something I wanted to learn how to do. So that's what sent me on to my first backpacking adventure. This was huge for me, huge. So I'd been hiking a lot, getting my strength up, getting a lot more comfortable being in the outdoors. But one day, a little ad popped up for a tour through the Paria Canyon. And I was obsessed with that. I'm like, I've got to do that. I have to go do that. But, our minds play on us. You're not strong enough. You'll be slow. You can't keep up. You're not ready for that. And anyway, took me about a good month before I finally said, you know what? I am going to do this. So I did. I signed up for it. And it was really hard for me to put myself into the position of saying, you're capable of doing this. I just felt so inadequate. But I kept training and I kept working and getting the right gear. And the best thing I ever did was go on that trip.
You mentioned before that this backpacking trip, quote, blew open a door in me that I didn't know needed opening. And I would love for you to explain more about that. What door was closed within you that you weren't even aware of?
Yeah, that was big. Well, the door that opened in me was of knowing that I was capable of doing something like this and thriving in it. A lot of people get out in the outdoors and they get dirty and stinky and hungry and, they just want to get home to their beds. And I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to stay and just to experience the country, the canyons, out of my own comfort zone. And the only way to see these kinds of things was I had to hike there. I had to backpack there. You can look at pictures in books and videos and stuff, but until you're actually there, that's when it fills your soul. That's where you gain those experiences. And that was the door that blew open in me. Was I wanted to do more of these. And it just really just opened me up to so much more. Because, there was way more for me to experience. But without learning how to backpack, I'd never experienced any of those. So that was the door that opened. And I have done multiple backpacking trips now. And I just thrive on them, thrive. So
thinking back to that first trip, that first backpacking trip, knowing you were 59 years old and that was your first overnight, did like a feeling of like awareness of your age come up at all? Like what were the ages in the group? And did you feel like different in relation to everybody? Like was age even a factor, or could you just ignore it out on the trip?
oh, it was huge at first because, I'm in my mind, I'm going, oh, you're the old lady. You're going to, all these younger people. But when I got to the group there was a lady that was older than me. So that kind of set me at ease for a little bit. But, age isn't a factor. I don't think so. Now, if you're doing, fastest known times or things like that where speed matters, that's different. But for these where everybody is doing the same thing, and whether you're young or you're old, we have different perspectives because of our age, of experience that we've gained. But we were all enjoying the same thing at the same time. And I think our youngest was like 22 up to 63. So we all had a ball. It was really fun.
That's a great range. I love having multi-generational outdoor trips. I think that's where you can learn the most. And it's so important. So here at the Cairn Project, we are actually launching a Grand Canyon rim to rim or rim to river to rim adventure happening in October of 2025. And we just got off our group planning call. And the average age of our hikers is about 60. And there was one woman who was talking about in the process of fundraising for women's scholarships and going on this trip, she had that moment that so many of us face when fundraising of who cares about my story? I'm a 60-year-old woman. I'm not an elite athlete. Like, why would anybody listen to this? But people are listening to that. And it matters so much because, like you said, when you showed up to your first backpacking trip, you saw a woman that was older than you, and it made you feel a little bit more welcome to start. And so I think these stories are so important of sharing your own personal experiences, no matter your age, no matter how elite or professional or fast or slow you are. We need that whole diversity of stories in our media.
Oh, I 100% agree. I have a lot of people that tell me all the time, I just can't wait to be like you when I grow up. And it inspires me to know that, I'm still progressing, even at my age. Most of the time people retire and they chill out and, they don't work anymore. Oh man, this just lit a fire in me. And I'm just, I'm thoroughly enjoy it. I'm not retired yet, but I am loving my age. I'm loving what I can do at this age.
Oh, I love that. I'm 33. I have to sometimes count. And I have a lot of close friends in their 40s. And one of my closest friends is, about 10 years older than me. And she's telling me all the time, like, don't listen to the media because it just gets better. Everything gets better. You get more confident. You get more confidence, stability. You can just find more pleasure in things and friendships. And I just love that she's reframing to me what aging could look like for me. And I know, 30 to 40 looks different than 40 to 50, than 50 to 60. But I just wish we could hear more stories of people talking about the benefits and beauty of aging, because so much of the media is about anti-aging and prevent this and look young forever. But like that doesn't sound as interesting to me.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Yeah, a lot of times, I just don't know why we put such a connotation of, you're old, because when you're older, you've got the maturity, you've got discipline, you've got mental discipline. I think, gosh, I raised my 6 kids. I'm strong, and to transfer all of those experiences of growing up, they just enhance my ability to do big adventures. Nothing as hard as what I've already done. So everything that I, plan to do, I know I can do it, because I've got that experience. I have that, mental background of doing hard things. And plus experience, the more I do, the more experience I get. So I get better at nutrition and hydration. And so it qualifies me to do bigger adventures and longer adventures. And I mean, I just love it. I just love the knowledge that I've gained from my aging. It's awesome.
What has backpacking and time outdoors taught you about aging and the rest of your indoor life? I mean, how does what you've learned, spending time adventuring, transfer into, aging, quote unquote, gracefully or whatever you want to call it, with your relationships and your career and everything else?
Oh, that's a big one. Everything that I have done outdoors just improves every other aspect of my life. So, in fact, I run a quilting business. I'm a self-employed. And, my customers that bring their quilts to be done, their whole thing to ask me is, what have you done? Where have you been? What's your last hike? Where are you going? Because they know I'm active and that I'm a goer. It's just really fun to have them vested in me, at this age of, what's going on. And some of them have a lot of health problems. And so they're just like, I just lived through you vicariously. And so they're like, pull out your phone. I want to see your pictures. And so, it's really the rest of my life basically follows my adventure life now, because my adventure life kind of took over everything. I'm happy that way. It's just been really, really good. I used to have a lot of other little hobbies and, backpacking and hiking, all that's kind of taken lead.
Yeah.
So
I relate to that too. And I do that, fun first mentality to life, which is great. Like I'm plugging in my outdoor time and my adventures and my travel and trying to build a life around that. And of course, though, that for me has come with some small downsides too of, okay, well, if I'm prioritizing fun and exploration and physical movement outdoors, that means I'm not making money or investing isn't the number one priority, or having a clean house isn't the number one priority. And sometimes friendships can't always be the number one priority. Do you notice any downsides to having this adventure-oriented life yourself?
I really don't. Yes, maybe my house isn't as clean. It's true. Though, this is one thing I will say. Because of my adventuring, I tend to procrastinate everything else. So, yeah, my adventuring makes me procrastinate the things I don't want to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if I want to find a place to go backpack, I'll spend all the time in the world, looking at an itinerary and researching it out. But, to do the stuff I don't want to do, I procrastinate that because of my adventuring. So,
does being self-employed and owning your own business help you fit in more adventure into your schedule in life?
Oh, 1,000,000%. I tell people, I go, I asked my boss if I could take some time off today, and she's such a nice lady. She just lets me go. So, yeah. So it works really, really well. I mean, there's sometimes I'm working till, midnight, or I get up at 5 a.m. and work, but then I'm off to, find a sinkhole up above a lake up here. I just really like to adventure. And so it works. In fact, it works really, really well because I can balance the time between, family, my work, and my adventures. Yeah.
Can you share how you went from that first group backpacking trip to moving into solo backpacking and solo adventures?
Oh, yes. I still remember my first solo. Oh my gosh, I was scared to death. So right behind my home, there is, it's called the Wasatch Mountain Range. It's a 5,000-foot elevation gain hike, and it's all squished into about 12 miles. So I go end to end. And one day I woke up and I just said, I have to hike this mountain, and I have to do it alone. because I knew I would never push past my barrier of being solo if I didn't do something like that. I mean, it's got cell phone reception over the whole mountain. So, I mean, it was easy for me if I needed help, but I had to do that alone. And I did. I got up at like 5 and I went and hiked it. And I was about a third of the way up and called my husband and said, I'm hiking this mountain. And I had to do it alone. And I did. And it was very, very difficult for me because it's a big hike. I mean, I do it every year now, and it's not as big as hike to me now. But at that time, it was very, very difficult. But I did it. And I'll tell you what, that pushed me out of my scared zone. It pushed me out of, you always got to have somebody with you, or, it just pushed me into learn more about being self-reliant, how to, more map, information. So anyway, it really, really helped me get a lot more knowledge about being solo. And I never stopped. I mean, that same thing, that kind of opened a door for me. And I do a lot of solo. I do a lot of group hiking with friends. I have a really good, fun little hiking group that I hike with. But sometimes I just want to do it by myself, and I do.
Do you have tips for women who maybe are also feeling that terrifying fear of going out alone, say backpacking? How can we get over that fear and feel prepared and confident to go out backpacking alone for our first time?
Oh, well, I'd say sometimes you just gotta, kick yourself in your own rear and go do it. Pick something smaller to begin with. Just do a lot of research. If there's, let's just say there's rattlesnakes on this trail, you got to learn more about rattlesnakes. If this is an area that has, its own weather system, then, look up and see what you would do in case, a lightning storm comes through. So I think the knowledge of how to take care of yourself in the situation that, say the hike or the adventure that you're going to do, if you are more prepared on those kinds of things, then you don't feel so scared about them. Because you're like, oh, hey, a hailstorm's come. Oh, great, I brought a rain jacket and an extra layer, so I'm fine. I'm taken care of because I took care of myself. So I think that's probably what my advice would be is, do a lot of research and ask people about where you're going. But you just got to go. You just got to go. And once you've done one, once you've done your second, your third, then your confidence grows. And, and also it teaches you how not to be careless. Because, a lot of people get hurt on things, but they weren't prepared. They were careless about things. Don't take enough water, don't take enough food. And if you get hurt, you don't have the proper things to help yourself. So I think that's the easiest way to help people is just help them be the education.
Did you have any lessons learned the hard way? Did you ever find yourself in a situation maybe you weren't prepared or educated for and you had to get yourself out?
I really haven't. But I did have one experience scared the living daylights out of me. So I was on this hike, it's called Logan Peak. And it's the ones that the hot shots, the firefighters used to train on. But I didn't know that at the time. So I hiked this hike and it's extremely steep and difficult. But, and I had my dog with me. He's my hiking dog. And he found a badger. And in my mind, it's just going, I'm going to have blood and guts out here with my dog getting attacked. And anyway, I thought, how am I going to get off this mountain? This encounter with this badger. And it worked out. I called my dog, he got back. So we didn't have it, but I still remember the fear of being on a mountain and having a possibility of something like that happening. And yeah, it helped me be, a little bit more aware, a little bit more careful. But yeah, that was that was an eye-opener that day. I mean, I've passed snakes, I've seen all kinds of critters, but that badger, that was close.
Mm-hmm. Do you still run into scary moments on trail, or do you feel like fully self-confident where like you're not scared of anything anymore?
You know, I don't think I'm scared of much anymore. Things surprise me all the time, you know. I mean, we'll come, like I'll be hiking and run across a whole big, huge field of huckleberries. And, you know, I'm like, whoa. So we stop and feast on the berries and, you know, just really fun, exciting things like that. But no, I don't know. I think I've just really become so comfortable in the outdoors. And I really be careful to do my research before I do these things to know what dangers would be there. You know, like when we went to the Wind Rivers, you know, they said there could be bears. So I bring and prepare for in case if there's a bear. We didn't see one, but, you know, it's a possibility. So, yeah, I just really, really take the time before I go to make sure I know what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that you wrote to me when we were passing notes was I had to relearn a lot about myself and as a woman what I was truly capable of. Can you share a story that highlights that?
Yes, I can. And I'm really happy to share this story. So after that first backpacking trip, I started quite heavily into menopause. And I'll tell you, I couldn't keep muscle mass. My ligaments, my tendons, my muscles were a mess. And I have a really good friend that is a doctor and he does hormone replacement therapy. And he said, you know, you should probably do this. This will help you. And so as a woman, I wished I would have paid more attention to that at the beginning, because I kind of suffered for a couple years. And I noticed that I couldn't hike as fast. I couldn't, endure as long. And I really wish I'd paid attention sooner. So as soon as I got, on the medication I needed, my life improved in a split second because I could build muscle mass. My tendons, ligaments finally were happy. And that is when, I started to excel. And, because I felt like me again. And it was, I know we talk about this, kind of these taboo things, but I felt like, hopefully I'm reaching people of my age and to say, hey, this is something real. And this affected how I felt and how I performed. So I was really, really happy to find a way to help me be better and to improve that way. It was a big eye-opening thing for me to know I could help myself that way.
Mm-hmm. Menopause and perimenopause are also parts of normal life that we'll try to hide or cover up or just completely avoid and not talk about. But talking to people in my circles, there's a lot of beauty that they see in that too, even though it's a hard process. What is there any beauty that's come when you think back to the perimenopause years and entering menopause? What are the pros that we're not talking about enough?
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of good things that as you go through that. Honestly, even though sometimes our bodies kind of struggle with that, I really think, our maturity and experience has become a huge part of your life. They become more important to you. And that's what I found as I was going through, you kind of transitioning out of, bearing children age and you're moving into the more settled stage. I feel like it just gave me a lot more freedom in being comfortable, with me, Yeah, I really, honestly, I really liked moving into that stage. It just was a new chapter in my life. And yeah, I didn't dread it, Physically, it was a little hard for a while, but mentally, it was kind of fun growing up. I really like where I'm at. I like my age. I like being where I'm at. I have just a life full of wonderful memories that just keep building. Mm-hmm. So,
is there anything that would surprise people about being so active and hiking and backpacking into your 60s?
Well, I always thought, oh, you get 60 and, 65, 70, you slow down. And I've done nothing of the sort. If anything, I just keep adventuring more. And I just love it. I mean, I've got a whole group of friends that we ski. We have a ski resort right up, about 40 minutes from me. We're all cannot wait till we can buy our 70-year-old pass. It's only $100 when we turn 70. And it's a goal. It's really a goal. And we just love it. We love it. It kind of goes hand in hand. The fact that we're a little bit more independent, because we don't have our children at home. I mean, I've got grandkids, and so I still spend a lot of time with them. But, being able to, at this age, you just have a little bit more freedom on your own time. And, that's what I would say to people as they're aging into this older age is, man, you're the one that can decide which direction you're going. You can slow down or you can speed up. And I sped up. So,
what are the things you have to do to keep that momentum and that speed? I mean, you were talking earlier about like the tendency for women to lose strength unless they're really intentional about, say, like weight training. I know in my 20s and 30s, I've seen the science, I've seen the evidence where by me keeping muscle and bone health now, it's going to help me a lot, hopefully later on in life. So that's something that I've prioritized. Is there anything like that or any other tactical ways that or habits that you have in order to stay healthy and moving along at that speed?
Yes. You hear this all the time, but if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's true, so I don't go to the gym, but I do strength training at home. And then I get out every single week, at least 2 or 3 times. And, just to keep me where I'm at. I don't ever want to regress. So what I do is I already have the ideas of where I want to go, and I just plan them out. So I have a whole list of all these hikes, these adventures that I want to do. And I plan them and I do them. I say I want to go hike this ridge trail. And in fact, I did one last week, and I did it at night. I did it as a sunset hike. So I got right up to the ridge. The sun was setting, beautiful, hike down with my headlamp. So you can find, unique ways to do this stuff. I never do it as in like, I got to get in these miles and I got to keep my heart rate up this much. It's never that. I just go out and I just hike and adventure at the places I want to go, at the speed I want to go. Or if I'm with friends, we'll mix that up a little bit. But, you just keep going. And the funny thing is it's never a chore to me. I want to go. I see a peak somewhere. I'm like, I need to go hike that. And I do. Mm-hmm. So.
What did your kids think about when you started exploring more and backpacking solo more? Did they have any thoughts?
Oh, yeah. They thought I was nuts. Yeah. They thought I was completely nuts. But I explained to them, I said, I just want to be healthy. My mother passed away a while ago and she was not healthy. She had a lot of health issues and she did not have a lot of muscle mass. And I said, I want to be healthy to the end. And I knew this is what I needed to do to, not follow in that same, pattern. And so, yeah, they just thought it was kind of crazy at first. And I think it took a little while for them to adjust, especially when I did solo things. They got worried. Mm-hmm. They got really worried. And I mean, right now, if I said I was doing a hike, they wouldn't even bat an eye. But at first it was really different for them. But half of my kids come with me. So, and some of my kids are, they're in the child raising age, and so they can't go with me. But I just said, I'm going to keep going for years. So as soon as you're able, you come with me. And they're starting to do that.
Did you have a partnership while you were having kids? And how did that change once you started solo adventuring when your kids were older?
You know what? That is a good question. Yeah. Yes. So my husband and I, we had 6 children. And so for, about 22 years, I was totally in, kids and teenagers and, colleges and all that stuff. It was busy. My husband and I worked really good together. And so when I started, doing a little bit more outdoor stuff, I just told him, I said, this is just what fills me. It fills me up to be out and to enjoy and to see things. So as I started doing that, then, now my husband has some health problems too. So he can't do a lot of what I do, but he can still do some. So I'll find a fun little place to go that's a mile. He still comes with me and he does it. So he adjusted to that. It took him a little while, but he adjusted to me doing these big ones. But he realized how much I needed it and how much I loved it. And honestly, he's been very supportive. So when I did my first backpacking trip through the Paria, I just remember asking him, and I just said, should I go do this? And he goes, if you want to, you should do it. So he really has supported me from the beginning. But he thinks I'm nuts sometimes too, though.
Here's a selfish question. So me thinking about, myself in the next few years, if I have a kid, one of my biggest fears is like, oh my gosh, will I not have time to go do all these outdoor things I love? Or what if parenthood is just so hard that I never go outside again? And I know chances are I will find a way to continue all my passions and build my life meaningfully and intentionally in that way. But now that you've been through child raising for 6 different kids, and now you have grandkids, like what advice, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself in your 20s and 30s and 40s, like are there any parenting family tips that you would give past you in order to balance parenthood with adventure?
Yes, I could. Yeah. So, I absolutely loved raising my children. It was just a huge, fulfilling part of my life. But, it's hard. It's hard. But I remember there were times where I would just look at my husband and I'd just say, I have to walk around the block. And the fact that I gave myself some time occasionally, it wasn't not as much as it is now, but I just knew going outdoors, breathing the air, getting my blood pumping, I could come back in and say, okay, guys, let's get this homework done, or let's get this room cleaned. But I found that every time I spent some time outside, I had patience, I had kindness. It was like my healing factor, just to breathe some fresh air. And I pretty much raised my kids outside too. I mean, we live on a big acre piece of land, and we've got a pond and water. And so we adventured a lot, just even in our yard.
Oh, I would also then love some tips on raising outdoorsy kids. I know sometimes families, I have a couple of good friends, Tina and Rhett Jacoby. I actually interviewed them on a different podcast, and Rhett came from a very, very adventurous family, and they had a system when they were young kids of every mile that they hiked, ran, or biked, they would get like a nickel, or they had different mileage amounts or cents per mile for each sport.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. And it really, I understand for some families, they're going to be like, well, that's bribery and that doesn't, intrinsic motivation. But for this family, it really worked. And now they have like the most adventurous kids I've ever known. I mean, they're now in their 40s, right? But I'm curious what you would, do you have any tips, tricks, advice for raising an outdoorsy, active family?
Yes. This is what I would say. Right from a baby, you put them outside. You take them outside. It's cold outside, put a coat on. Put a hat on them. Let them feel that cold air. Sit them in the grass. They play with bugs. Let them play with the bugs. Put their feet in the mud. you know? And I mean, I know some people that, the kids hate the outdoors because they get dirty or they get that outdoor smell, which, us adventurers crave that outdoor smell. Mm-hmm. So I just know with my kids, that's what I did. We went outside and I put their feet in the grass because, sometimes babies hate grass, but, it just exposed them to it. So I've got a porch on my front and I got a deck on the back. So like in the morning I wake up, we go out and eat breakfast on the porch. And at night we sit out on the deck. And, that's what I tried to do with my kids was just outdoors is just part of your life. It's not like, oh, well, let's go outdoors today. It was, we just are always outdoors. Yeah. We play outdoors and we hang hammocks in our trees and, have bug collections and, all that stuff. So.
And why is that so important for you? Because, the whole point of this podcast is to get more girls and women outdoors and to lessen the gender gap that exists both outdoors and in and everywhere in the world. And so, at the Gia Alliance, we really believe in the power of transformative experiences outside. But I'd love to hear in your own words, why bother getting your kids outdoors? Why bother spending time outdoors yourself? Like, what is the whole point of this?
Oh, it just opens you up to a whole different world, a whole different perception of the world when you spend time outdoors. I'm a pretty independent person, and that's what I tried to teach all of my children. And, as they age and they get older, every single one of them have come back to me and have said, thank you so much, Mom, for teaching me how to work and, how to be outside and how to do outside things. It's not just about, cleaning and laundry, it's about weeding and raising a garden and mowing lawns and putting string huts in trees and, laying out on the trampoline and looking at the stars at night and watching, meteor showers. And, I've just really spent my whole life helping them see the other part of the world, we read books and, did all those important things of, education, but the education is also outdoors. And I was very careful with my kids I like to ride motorcycles. So I taught every single one of my children how to ride. Mm-hmm. My girls all have motorcycles licenses because it was never, oh, boys, you can ride motorcycles and girls, you can ride bikes, Mm-hmm. If they wanted to learn to ride a motorcycle, I taught them, And same thing with my hiking, If my sons want to come, that's great. If my girls want to come, they're all completely capable of doing all of that because I included all of them in all of it. But I think a lot of times girls are not given that opportunity or the girls don't feel aggressive enough to ask for it. They've been taught, oh, well, girls, you don't do this and you're not supposed to be there. But it's not true. Girls need to be out there and they need to be confident enough to just say, I'm here. Let's go do it.
If you love Paula's energy and want to feel that confidence yourself, especially in trail running, applications to the first 50K Sisterhood close the night of January 10th, 2026. So if you are listening to this episode the day it comes out, you still have enough time to apply for the scholarship program where 15 women will run their first trail ultramarathon in June 2026. This is a collaboration between the Kieran Project and Wild Woman Trail Runs. So run to the show notes now to get more info. Now back to Paula. I know that one of your goals is to get that $100 a year ski pass, but I'm curious what other goals you have for the next decade and maybe remind us how old you are now and then what's ahead. What are your big dreams?
Well, I just turned 63 and on my agenda already, I'm going to go hike Coyote Gulch down in the Grand Staircase. And then I'm going through the Paria again, the end of October. And in November, I am hiking the Grand Canyon again. Ooh. So Yeah, I snagged a 10-person cabin down at Phantom Ranch.
Oh my gosh,
So
what a dream.
so 10 of us are going down. These are all my good friends, my hiking friends that went through the Wind Rivers with me. And so we're going to go party at Phantom Ranch.
It's a great excuse to keep those joints healthy. Very
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I'm to a point now where, I love being where I'm at. Meaning, if you were to ask me to go hike the Grand Canyon tomorrow, I'd say, let me grab my shoes and my backpack, and I could go do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm at a point where I don't have to say, give me a week, I'll get in shape, and I can go. I love being where I'm at. So, in fact, in 2 weeks, I'm going to go hike Timpanogos in Provo. And, I just love being able to just say, yeah, let's go. I can do that and be prepared. I'm just always prepared. I'm just always ready. And I love it. I just love being in that position.
Me too. It's like training for life. I know a lot of times people are like, well, what are you training for? And it's like, to be able to roll out of bed and go climb Timpanogos if I want to.
Yeah, you said that perfectly. I'm training for the rest of my life, the rest of my life. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And next year we want to go back to Havasupai. Oh, we went there 2 years ago, and we can't wait to get back.
Oh yeah, that's also that one's hard for people because you have to go down first, right? The uphill comes on the way back.
Yes, yeah. It is true.
Surprise.
But though after doing Grand Canyon, that was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
There's just one more thing I was thinking about. I know earlier I made a comment around, some people call it aging, quote unquote, gracefully. And I know other people think the word gracefully is silly. Like, how do you want to age, or how are you aging? If it's not like the word gracefully, what is it?
Oh, I'm aging fantastically. I just feel like, well, okay, I'll give you a little background on this. I remember a time that, we'd take group pictures or, on our hikes. I'm like, oh man, my belly's hanging out. Look at my hair. And, I should lose a little weight or whatever. And, I totally turned that around in my brain. And so every time I look at a picture now, I'm like, that's me. I hiked that mountain and look, there I am. And so I think aging like this is you grow into where I can't change the way I look. I can't change my hair, unless I spend a lot of money, but that's not important. My important energy is to experience this hike or this, adventure. And so aging, you get to where you just don't even care about that other stuff. It's like I got a body that works and it's true to me. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters. And I've got eyes to see and a brain to comprehend it all. And I'm just grateful every day for my body, every single day. So I'm glad I put a new perspective on how I look at myself.
Yeah, that's a lesson all ages can use for sure.
All ages. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially all ages. Because, we're hard on ourselves all the way through our lives. And that's something I wish I'd learned earlier. You're always nitpicking yourself apart, but this was a big eye opener for me as old. Just like this, I was looking at my picture and, when we were talking, and I'm like, man, I got all these baggy skin. And I'm like, yeah, and that baggy skin goes everywhere.
Yeah, these vessels are the thing that will come on every single hike for the rest of our lives.
Yep. Oh, I'm so grateful for my body. It just gives me, it's awesome.
Well, I think we need to rebrand Aging Gracefully to Aging Fantastically.
I agree.
Big thanks to Paula for sharing her story and proving that we can all have beautiful, full, adventurous lives at any age. And it's never too late to start adding more outdoor adventure into your life. Here's your final reminder to check the show notes for info on both the 2026 Summit Scholarships and the First 50K Sisterhood. And there are so many other ways to get involved with our work at the Alliance for Gender Equity in Outdoor Adventure. We have the Cairn Project, where you turn your adventure into a force for good that supports Summit scholarships. We have Gritlit, our adventure book club subscription. We have Trail Talks, which are monthly virtual learning opportunities that are free. And of course, we have here the See Her Outside podcast. A 5-star rating and review from you will help us keep creating episodes that inspire women and girls to share their own voices in adventures with others. See Her Outside is brought to you by the Alliance for Gender Equity in Outdoor Adventure, hosted by me, Angie Lake, and edited by Allison Castingway. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow now so that you don't miss any future episodes. They come out every other Thursday. We would love for you to stay in touch or send your feedback to Angie@cairnproject.org, that's me, so that we can team up in our mission to close the gender gap and work towards a more inclusive outdoors. Until next time, go get outside.